Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission is always the same. We take a stack of compelling sources, we pull out the most important knowledge, and we give you the essential context. It's your shortcut to understanding a really complex story. Today, we're going back to Las Vegas in 1979. We're diving into a cold case that went unsolved for 44 years.
44 years.
This is the story of a victim who was known for decades only as Sahara Sue. Her real name, which we now know, is Gwenn Story.
And this deep dive, it's not just about the crime itself. It's really a case study in just sheer persistence and the incredible speed of forensic technology.
Yeah.
We're going to trace this investigation across 4 different decades, from the first clues they found at the scene all the way to a resolution that came from genetic genealogy.
So let's start with those initial facts. They're pretty stark. Gwenn Story was only 19 years old.
Just a kid.
On August 14th, 1979, she's found murdered. She'd been stabbed several times in the abdomen, and this happened right near the intersection of Sahara and Las Vegas Boulevard.
Which is where the nickname Sahara Sue came from. A tragedy that starts, right there in the shadow of the Vegas Strip.
So let's go to that initial scene. She was found lying face down in a parking lot, and investigators figured out pretty fast that she'd been killed only 3 or 4 hours before they found her.
Yeah, it's a very fresh scene.
Yeah.
And they did get one lead, a really thin one, that she was seen with an unidentified white man shortly before she died.
But her physical description was, well, it was kind of all over the place.
It often is in these Doe cases. They had her at 5'6", maybe 100 or 105 pounds, but the age estimate was huge.
Oh, huge.
Anywhere from 15 to 30.
That's a massive range. Why so wide?
It all comes down to the most unique and honestly the most misleading physical detail in the whole case file.
You're talking about her teeth.
Exactly. The dental work. This is the thing that made her case so memorable but so frustrating for investigators.
She was only 19, but she had no natural teeth. She wore a complete upper denture.
A complete upper denture. And the matching lower one, it was gone. Not at the scene, just missing.
And that one detail must have thrown everything off.
Oh, completely. Think about it. A young woman who needs a full set of dentures. It suggests a profile that just doesn't line up with her real age. It made it almost impossible to check her against missing persons records for teenagers.
So that denture became the central clue.
It was the central, frustrating anchor of the case for 40 years.
And beyond that, they had her clothing, some very specific items.
Yes. They had hip hugger jeans and this very distinctive blue linen shirt. It was tied near her waist, and it had red embroidered designs and sequins on it.
Sequins. So very 70s Vegas.
Very 70s. And these little details become memory markers for the investigation. She also had 2 very specific pendants.
Okay.
One was a white metal leaf with a turquoise stone, and the other was a plastic heart with a rose design inside.
So you've got the dentures, the sequin shirt, the unique pendants.
And a few other things. Her nails were manicured, painted red, but her ears weren't pierced, which is maybe a little unusual for the time.
So all these little physical things, this is what they had to go on.
This was it. When fingerprints came up with nothing and early DNA wasn't an option, these items are all you have. You're just hoping someone somewhere recognizes a pendant or remembers that shirt. It really shows you how much they were counting on simple physical recognition back then.
And of course, that didn't happen. The case went cold.
It went ice cold. Her fingerprints were run through national databases. Nothing. Decades go by, and then in 2003, technology's moved on enough that they make a huge decision.
To exhume her body.
Exactly. They exhume her specifically to get a DNA sample.
Now, this is fascinating to me. They get DNA in 2003, but it still doesn't solve the case. Not right away. What does that tell us?
It tells us a lot about how fast the tech was changing. They had the commitment, for sure, but the tools in 2003 had limitations. Back then, the main method was something called STR analysis. If your sample is really degraded, which happens in all cases, those early methods often couldn't build a strong enough profile to get a match in the national database, CODIS.
So they had a sample, but they couldn't match it.
A usable sample, but not a matchable one, not yet.
So the case is still stuck, and instead of identifying her, they have to work backwards, right? Ruling people out.
It was just painstaking work. They had several near misses. For instance, in 2011, they looked hard at a woman named Deborah Ray Meyer. She vanished in '74 and also wore dentures.
Oh, wow.
But they used DNA, and it confirmed Sahara Sue was not her. They ruled out at least 7 different missing women that way. It just shows you how dedicated they were, even when every lead was a dead end.
But then something happens in 2016 that just completely changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a science I think most people have never even heard of: forensic palynology.
Right. The study of pollen. It sounds like something out of the science fiction movie.
It really does. So what is it?
Pollen grains are microscopic, they're incredibly durable, and they are very specific to certain locations in plants.
So analyzing the pollen trapped in her clothes.
It's like reading a travel diary written on a microscopic level. It can tell you where someone has been.
And what did her microdiary say?
It said that she had spent time in California.
Wow.
Yeah. Specifically in high pollen areas like the Napa Valley or the Central Valley. And not just, at some point in her life. She was there shortly before she was murdered in Las Vegas.
So that's a monumental shift.
Huge. Before that, police were chasing local leads. Maybe she worked at a motel on the Strip. Maybe her name was Shauna. The pollen proved she was from out of state, and she was there recently. It completely changed the direction of the whole investigation.
So these tiny little clues from the environment kept that California connection alive when everything else had failed.
Exactly. And that brings us, finally, to the big breakthrough. The moment when the tech finally caught up with the evidence they'd so carefully preserved back in 2003.
In September of 2022, the Las Vegas Metro Police send the evidence to a private lab, Othram Inc.
Yep.
This is the moment where 44 years of waiting just collapses. What did Othram do that was so different from the effort back in '03?
Well, the big insight here is that for 40 years, they were chasing objects. The shirt, the dentures. The case broke when they stopped chasing the missing pieces and started focusing on the degraded molecules they already had.
Okay.
Othram uses something called forensic-grade genome sequencing. It's designed specifically to work with tiny, fragmented, basically broken-down DNA samples. They didn't just look for a match. They rebuilt her entire DNA profile from that old, fragile sample.
And once you have a full profile, it's a whole new ballgame. You're not just looking for a criminal in a database anymore.
Precisely. You can do genetic genealogy. They uploaded that profile to public genealogy databases to look for relatives.
So finding cousins, not the person themselves.
Distant cousins, third cousins, anyone who shared enough DNA. From there, they built a family tree, working backwards until they landed on one name, Gwenn Story.
And the formal identification comes on December 19th, 2023. Gwenn Story finally has her name back.
It's an incredible moment.
Yeah.
But it didn't just give her a name. It immediately gave investigators a human context for her last few weeks alive.
And that context is just, it's heartbreaking.
It really is. The family told police that Gwenn had left her home in Cincinnati, Ohio in the summer of 1979. And she was on a mission, a personal quest.
She was trying to find her biological father.
A 19-year-old girl traveling to California to find her dad, carrying those few possessions, those two little pendants.
And we learned something else. She wasn't traveling alone.
No. Her family said she was with two male friends. And this detail, which only came to light after the identification, it instantly refocuses the whole murder investigation.
Because Gwenn never contacted her family again.
Never. But those two male friends. They did return to Cincinnati that August.
And they told her family that they'd just left her in Las Vegas.
They just left her behind. And that is now the absolute central focus of the murder investigation. The last people known to have seen Gwenn Story alive are the two friends who came home without her.
So if you connect all this back to the big picture, this case just perfectly maps the evolution of forensics.
It's a perfect illustration. You go from an era of identifying someone based on, a physical quirk like dentures or a sequin shirt,
Right.
to an era where you can trace her last journey, her motivations, who she was with, all from a tiny degraded sample of DNA. It's just a stunning victory for persistence.
It really is. I mean, the journey from Sahara Sue in a parking lot to Gwenn Story, a young woman trying to find her father. Her identity is finally restored. Her family has an answer. But of course the case isn't closed. Her murder is still unsolved. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. The focus now is on those two friends who came back to Cincinnati. They just told her family they left her in Vegas. What does that one detail tell you, and how do you think it shapes the next and hopefully final chapter of this very long search for justice?